How y'all doing? In continuing to review Tanith Lee's wonderful Tales in a Flat Earth series, we're going to review book number 3, Delusion's Master. Now, before I get started, just want to say that you can definitely tell, it's more obvious in this one than it was in other stories, that she used, the Bible is a very strong influence in this course of the stories. Now, Tanith Lee has always been in praise for her prose and her strong understanding of myth to create these stories, and the characters are in it. And this one you can definitely tell she has a strong influence of the Bible here. But I think in context this makes sense. The flat Earth in this series is our world, but in a distant past. It says a long time ago the Earth was flat instead of round, and this was the characters and the events that happened in it. And I think what she's trying to do is she's taking the stories that happened there as these stories would later pass on to our round world later on in the stories in other forms. Not the first time I heard this in fantasy. Carl E. Wagner's famous Cain series is obviously a parallel of Cain and Abel, even though his character, despite any parallels, is from another world, different fantasy world, and so forth. So, not the first time I heard this, but definitely, this is probably the only one where I kind of catch the immediate references of the Bible that you see in this. So, but she still tells a pretty good story on that. So, what parts of the Bible does she use on that? Well, let's explore. Okay, to understand the events of the story, we have to understand the prologue. It's a little bit of a lengthy prologue, but necessary to understand the events that happen later on. We go to the land of Sheev, ruled by a man named Nemdor. Nemdor has many wives and probably several concubines, but we focus on one of them, that is Azrarn, who we're introduced to her preparing for her husband's arrival. She's deeply in love with him. Will do anything for his love and attention and all that. She wants to be, the center of the universe for him. Now, the man has got other appetites, so to speak, so he doesn't spend all his time with her. But we find her preparing for her husband's arrival. Getting her baths ready. Dinner is perfect, her dress and all that. And she's doing all this. Her servants are doing this. She carries a bone in her hand. And it's part of a tragedy about her. You see, she has so much, she wants her husband's attention so much that she will do just about anything. And one time, she thought that she was going to get more attention from him when she was carrying her child from him. And it was like, finally, he will come back and spend more time with me and everything. But then she sort of thought, when the child was born, it's like, wait a minute, he might shift his attention to the child and not so much in me. And she, you see where this is going. She tries to get rid of the child. Unfortunately, she did so by sneak the child into some nomads that live outside the city, along with their children. They've got so many of them. They're all in a tent. What's one more, right? Where they'll take care of it. Except later, the husband comes back and tries to tell her what happened to the child. She tries to make up all excuses and presents the remains of the child. See, what it was is that there were guard dogs in the tent guarding the children. And while they were trained never to hunt, never hunt down and kill children, but they are trained to hunt and kill lions. And she made a mistake of wrapping the child up in a lion cloak. And this was devastating to her and disappointment to her husband. So she was sent to a tower, far away out of the city, and waiting for her. She later succumbs to madness. She carries the bone of her child with her. She waits for him, prepares for him for his arrival, for his love and affection, and then she comes to realize he's not going to give her the love and attention she needs, and she succumbs to madness. And that's where we're introduced to another of the 5 Lords of Darkness of the Flat Earth. We've already met Azrarn, the Lord of Wickedness and Mischief. He's a prominent character throughout the series. We meet Ulum, the Lord of Death, in the second book. Now we meet Lord Chuz, who is actually on the cover here. And this is decently accurate description of him. And notice it's half and half. That's the thing about him. He is the Lord of Madness and Delusions. And one half of him, is a perfect, handsome, noble bearing. The other half is an old, crusty, decrepit form of him. To look at him whole is to go mad. Now, she succumbs to madness. So now he's one of his servants because of this. And he offers her a boon. He says, for those who are to come to me, I offer a boon to him. And she says, I want Nemdor's madness to be the greatest of all. And he says, his madness will be legendary. So how does Chuz do it? Well, he goes up to Nemdor and gives him a vision. He says, you will build this tower that can actually reach to the heavens. And you will challenge the gods and gain immortality through their well. And you'll be known, you will achieve greatness through this and for the people of this world. And Nemdor believes him and begins to work. This becomes a tower of Babylon. See the biblical reference there? And so the tower goes up to the heavens. He's building it. He's on his way. He has a tremendous amount of resources. He starts gathering from people, both willing and unwilling, to start on this. He gets more and more obsessed with it, to where every time people talk to him about this is we can't do this, anything that involves not involving the tower, he just hears mumbles. But anything that deals with towards completion, he seems to hear that well. He just becomes obsessed with building this tower to heaven. But it's on its way, and so eventually, when certain resources came out, they filled it in with others. When workers when they died, they became part of the foundation, of the building. And he starts rising more and more up, and higher it gets. And he just comes to his madness more and more the further up they go. And then one day, it starts to crumble, and everything falls down. And in the end, when Nemdor falls and the tower falls, as well, Azrarn shows up. What does he have to do with this? Doesn't directly say how direct or indirect, or was he just observing this time? But he comes down there and he meets Chuz, who we know is part of this, and they kind of have a bit of a face-off there. There are two lords of darkness there. They're kind of a bit of a rival. You see, Azrarn is the lord of mischief and wickedness, and Chuz, while being the lord of madness, also plays similar games. And the events that follow, you can see they start building up a rivalry against each other. So, the Tower of Babylon, the story of that is passed down over the centuries. The city of Shiv is now renamed Bezhalbev, and there's this temple over there, to the high gods. People come to worship all the time. They believe that the gods in heavens are, right and just and good to those who follow them. And the story of Babylon is now understood to where Nemdor, who was seduced by the evil, wicked, ugly Lord of Darkness, he convinced him to build a tower and, just go up against heavens, and God struck him down and, went against the evil Lord who did this. Basic, summations about that. The thing is, you read in the prologue what actually happened. Azrarn travels among the pilgrims on one of their pilgrimages there, and he talks to the philosophers and to the storytellers about the events, and he knows what happens, and he gets deeply offended at how he is viewed in their eyes for all this. Especially the ugly part. The demons are, the Vashnu, which the high order of demons like Azrarn, they take very much pride in their beauty, and you strike their pride, you offer their anger. He angers them in turn with, talking about, with the words of wisdom he has. And so the pilgrims try to go after him, but he goes off and creates mischief among the pilgrims, and he also has plans against the priesthood. He gets the pilgrims against each other. He gets one of them, which will show up later on. There's these women who are seduced by him and says, kill your husbands, you can have me. And they don't know who he is, but just sees this beautiful man who's offered them more than what they are about to have. So they end up killing their husbands. They become murderesses. He tempts people into things that they want. He shows them for the hypocrites, the pride and they have. They're not as holy and righteous as they think they are. Once he gets them all rallied up against each other, he starts having plans for the priesthood. So Azrarn goes to the temple there and he meets a priestess, and her name is Dunazil. Now, she and him talk for a bit, and she's this very beautiful woman, very unusual. Azrarn has had many lovers throughout the centuries of various kinds. And her beauty is unique among them. Now, he's created extremely beautiful women. Remember Zoria in the first book. And he, after meeting with her, he has plans for her. Now, after the first meeting between Azrarn and Dunazil, the story goes back a bit and tells about her origin. Her conception involves, while she was inside her mother, a passing comet came by that the wizard was trying to absorb the magic, and after a big mix-up, some of the magic from the comet came to her and is now part comet as well as her parents. So she comes out very beautiful, but also unapproachable in many respects. It kind of describes as a flower within a glass vase no one can get through. That's why everybody wanting it. So the story goes back, and Azrarn now has plans with Dunazil. He falls in love with her, and she starts to love him back. And through that, he's going to conceive a child with her. And this child will serve as a means to bring down the priesthood and the pilgrims. You see, they believe that, the pilgrims and priesthood believe that the gods up in heavens watch down on them and give them all the blessings and everything that's good about their lives. And, and he's going to show them what happens when a god actually is amongst them and how horrible that can be. He's going to do that through his child that he's going to conceive with Dunazil. So Dunazil carries his child and later gives birth to a daughter. Things go as planned until things start to fall apart. You see, among the pilgrims, they were having a group of women who killed their husbands because Azrarn seduced them, to do so. And right before they were executed, Lord Chuz goes to them and takes one of them and reveals to her, that she was deceived, and now she comes to madness and now ends up being his service. And he tells her, basically sets her up to be like a prophet or a seeress to go among the pilgrims and spread around word that Dunazil's child is not a gift from the gods of immaculate conception. There's nothing good. She is, the child was conceived through the Lord of Darkness, and she succeeds. The priesthood gets, pilgrim starts, to go against it, and then the priesthood starts to interrogate Dunazil about all this. They eventually find out the truth, or at least come close to it. Now, here's where the main conflict lies. What was going to happen to Dunazil? Will Azrarn reach her time? He does have protections on her. You could ask, why didn't Azrarn just simply take her? Well, he doesn't want to just take her to his realm. He's prepared for it. He won't take her against her will. Dunazil does not want to leave her child, and Azrarn is not going to force her away from all this. So that's where things don't go well for them there. Well, Azrarn reach her in time. He can't do it in daytime. He has to, he can only go out at night. And will he succeed, or rescuing her, or what happens to the child afterwards? So I'm going to leave that up to you, the reader, to find that out when you read this. So, Delusion's Master, very good book. I am enjoying this one. It's a shorter one compared to the second one. Second one's thicker, and the next one's going to be much more. But I'm digressing. Chuz is an interesting character. You can see where, being the Lord of Madness and Delusion, he can be a trickster in his own right, and how he rivals up to Azrarn, even though he's the main Lord of Mischief and Wickedness. But he kind of explains love. Theme about this is that love is a kind of madness, and it's one of those interesting things. Is that is Azrarn going through all this as just random events he's just taking advantage of, or was this huge setup by Lord Chuz over the centuries just to play a game against Azrarn in his own weird way? Is there any logical sense? I mean, he is mad and as well, so it may make sense his own way. But there you go, Delusion's Master by Tanith. Definitely see where the biblical elements come in on this. The Tower of Babel, holy lands like the Mecca or Jerusalem or some places like that. The Immaculate Conception and giving birth to a god on earth and all that sort of thing. And even some modern things like the Devil's Child, Antichrist, and all that stuff. So it's a good use of that in this series. And there you go. Thank you all for watching. Have a nice day.